This is iLLANOiZE Radio with Biko, iLLANOiZE Jones, and Pretty Riot. Going down right now.
As always, man, this is iLLANOiZE Radio, Chicago's most valuable radio show. I'm your host, Biko, alongside Pretty Riot, iLLANOiZE Jones. And as always, we bring you all the illest guests from around the city and globe. And today we got the homegirl Teryn Payne in the building. Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good, feeling well. You look amazing.
Thank you.
You popping outside today?
I don't know.
Nah, that feels good out there.
I got a flight at 7 a.m.
Really? Oh, yeah, you do. You be moving around. Busy bee, but I'm gonna jump into it and say, how was it for you growing up, on the south side of Chicago, and then just hitting up college and turning into a journalist?
Yeah, well, I grew up on the east side. I've always
over east.
Yes,
for sure.
That's where I'm at.
Really?
That's where I'm at.
Where are you from?
Oh, damn.
Oh, he a west side ass.
He not from the east side.
He a west side ass nigga in real life.
Okay.
Real 290 nigga.
But I was
You
gonna
hear
say,
me?
but that's a 290 king right there.
I'm from out west, but I did move over east. I'm like off of South Shore.
Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up in South Shore.
Oh, okay. I mean, have you seen like how has things been like back then on the east side for you? Because I don't know if you're still in the area now, but have you seen like the changes?
Definitely. I mean, I feel like Chicago just has construction everywhere, and the east side is heavily constructed right now. But I always tell like my friends and my family, I feel a sense of peace when I'm on the east side. I don't know. It's maybe
the water.
It's the lake.
Yeah, and just like both my grandmothers lived over east, they still do, like 5 minutes away from each other. That's where my parents are, and I don't know. As soon as I get like a certain amount of south and a certain amount of east, I just feel like super peaceful.
Yeah, I think it's that lake water.
Yeah,
too.
and I love like living off the water.
And think about it, it's a lot of us in that area. I know me and Jones, we was talking about like anytime we pass a lot of them buildings, we look at it looked like hotels was on our side back then before they made them the condos.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of history on the east side as well that don't get talked about. We hear a lot about the south, a little bit about the west side, and a little bit about the east side. And I mean, you as well has created some history, Before we get into Ebony, let's talk about like what even got you started into wanting to become a writer?
So in high school, I was the editor-in-chief of my yearbook senior year, and I really wanted to major in photography, but my mom told me no. She was like, you're not about to go to school and major in photography. She was like, you need to figure out what's similar to that, and then you can major in that. And I was like, well, I love fashion, and I love to write. So I wanted to find something where I can start working at a magazine. So I'm like, I can major in journalism.
But how do the two kind of like measure up? Because you say your mother wanted you to find something similar. So how does journalism and photography kind of like combine?
Well, I was thinking about just when you're working at a magazine, you have like photo editors. And when I was in high school, we did a lot of photography and just like building of the yearbook and just constructing everything. So they definitely like are cousins.
Yeah, hand in hand. You know how we behind the mics, we got the photography. Shout out to the homie Raw.
Yes.
For those that be on our YouTube, make sure y'all show Raw some love. And speaking of journalism, I gotta know, man, because you put the work in. You got your degree. What degree did you get?
I got a bachelor's and master's of science in journalism.
Where we're at? What's that college?
The University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
Damn, hold on. Tough. That's very tough.
That's tough.
That's
hard.
You
Put some
got your
respect on the name.
I
master's.
did.
Damn. I mean, I don't know what it takes to get a master's, but I know you mastered it. Sheesh. I mean, so being able to get your master's, I want to know, like, what was it like graduating and then being able to get a call from Ebony Magazine, one of like the biggest magazine companies in the world, right here based in Chicago. What was it like getting that call that they wanted you a part of their staffing?
I was chasing them. So I was a part and still am a part of the National Association of Black Journalists, and I was the chapter president at U of I. And I remember one of the members of the Chicago chapter, Kathy Cheney, who is still like my mentor to this day, so shout out Kathy Cheney. She came and brought her daughter to show her the campus. And I realized that she worked at Ebony, and I was like, okay, I'm about to graduate. Like, I need a job. And the national convention was in D.C. that year in 2016. So I went there, had like my resume, I printed out all my business cards, and there were two managing editors. She was the one at the Chicago office, and then there was a guy named Joe Gray. He was the managing editor at the New York office. And so I was like on his heels at the convention. I'm like, can we go to lunch? Can we meet up? Can we do this? And he's just like, I think you're a great person and you're so talented, but we don't have anything open. And I was like, okay.
I'm happy that ain't crush your spirits.
It did, but I was still like feeling great energy from him. And then I still had a relationship with Kathy. And so he emailed me one day when I got back home, and he was like, you should meet my boss in Chicago. Her name is Kyra Kyles, and you should just meet her. And I was like, okay. And so I met her, and she loved me, and she had just became the editor-in-chief, and she didn't have an assistant at the time. And she basically like created a position for me to bring me on, and I was like the youngest person working at Ebony.
Damn, that's dope as hell.
Yeah.
When the company create a position for you, that lets you know you're talented. When they say we just gonna make something that ain't even available, you know you got that sauce, man. Damn, I mean, learning that. I didn't even ask you how long you've been in journalism.
Well, I graduated from grad school in 2016. That was August 2016, and then I got my job at Ebony in September of 2016, like 3 weeks after turning in my master's project. So it's been about 8-9 years.
Yeah.
Being from Chicago and getting your master's from the U of I and then landing a job at Ebony, like coming from Chicago, like that's from the crib, like you all the way around. Like, how did that make you feel? What was it like when you gave the news to your family? Like, yeah, I got it. Like,
They were really proud, and my mom, she was just bragging on me, but in a way that I think, like you said, just being from Chicago and just the history that came with Ebony and just the doors that they opened for the Black community and just giving them a voice to the voiceless and all the history that came to, I really felt like proud to have that as my first job and to be like the youngest person there. And I remember when Trump became president, the feeling of going to work and working at an all-Black company, knowing like they feel exactly how I felt. Like, we were all sad in the office. Like, I will never forget that. And I felt really proud and happy to know, like, I can come to work and I can be around people that feel the way that I feel, that look the way that I look. Like, it was a family. Like, I feel like they looked at me like a little sister, for sure.
Did you find it intimidating at all, like being like straight out of college, the youngest person in the company, and all these people have so much tenure and experience? Did you find it intimidating to just hop in and join that team?
I think that if my team wasn't so family oriented, I would. But I think I was like maybe 21 or 22 at the time, and most of the digital team, they were in their late 20s, similar to the age that I am now. But they were so nurturing and welcoming to me that it was kind of impossible to feel intimidated, because I felt like they wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to like do better, and I'm still close to them to this day. We talk all the time, and I'm really grateful for the network that I have. I feel like that is the foundation of my professional career.
You know, it's special hearing this too, because a lot of people go to college and they don't land a gig when they get their degree. But it was special because you landed your degree and you got like a dream job. Do you feel like the cause of you receiving that degree helped you land that job as well, outside of your personal connections?
I think my network at U of I helped me get it outside of the degree, because I feel like getting your degree is like half the journey, right? Like, you can't just go to college and expect that you're going to get a job. Like, you got to put the work in. So I had a friend of mine that I met in grad school, and she started telling me, because U of I was not like a lot of other journalism schools like Mizzou or Columbia, where they cultivated you to like work at magazines. Like I really wanted to intern at a magazine when I was in undergrad, but similar or unsimilar to my white counterparts, I couldn't just go to New York and work a $9 an hour internship. Like my mom was not gonna allow that. My parents, you know, they just weren't in a position to fund me to stay in New York for the summer. So I had to go to New York. I took a lot of informational interviews, and at the time I didn't know what an informational interview was. And it's basically like there's not a position necessarily open, but you're expressing interest in that company, and the turnover in the magazine industry is so high that there may be not a job today, but there'll be one tomorrow. So they've already met you. They already know you're interested. We used to have to take edit tests all the time where they basically pick your brain, have you put together a deck, headline, captions, and you submit it. So it's like, okay, this person is ready to like come on. So it's like a pre-vetting process.
Damn. That sounds like
That sounds scary.
work.
Yeah,
That sounds scary.
was a lot.
Look,
But I think like I actually love hearing that was the process because of the internet, I feel like, and I'm gonna bring this up a little later, but I feel like journalism is low key getting lost in the sauce because people are just getting in front of microphones and they actually don't have any journalism background. So it's good to see that they were wanting to put somebody that can do the work in position instead of just the cloud or the looks or anything like that. Like, no, you proved that you can do that, and I think that's dope. Yo, what's up? It's your girl, Pretty Riot, and I'm sitting pretty starting riots right here on iLLANOiZE Radio. And every single week, you come and you watch these great interviews, and you still ain't subscribed. What are you doing? Hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bell on too. Before the break, I did want to hop into journalism because I touched on the fact that I feel like journalism is getting lost in the sauce. I don't want to say like, what do you feel about that? But what do you feel about the current state of journalism or perceived journalism?
It makes me feel sad, to be honest, because starting my career in journalism, transparently, I got laid off 2 times in a row. I got laid off from Ebony, and I got laid off from my next job, Teen Vogue. And specifically the magazine industry, and just seeing like how digital media is diminishing, and you know they're just doing away with certain practices like you were talking about. It makes me feel like, is it going to come back? Is it going to evolve? But I was talking to my mentor, and she was letting me know like it's just a season, and that eventually it is going to transform and come back and evolve and be different than we probably are used to. But I think some of the authenticity will return. I just don't know when. And I hate to see like my favorite publications do a masthead layoff, or just like, you know, it's like you have this passion and you work hard to get where you are, and then you look up and you don't have a job. And it's like, how are you expected to keep going when you don't know? Like, it's not a lot of job security right now.
it's not.
Why is that?
not.
Like, I don't know if that's a concrete answer, but like,
feel
why
like-
is that in this
I think
industry?
it's the pandemic kind of like shook and shift a lot of the organizations and companies and corporations. That's really what I feel it is. The revenue changed from the pandemic. So people trying to figure out a way to get back to where they was before that shift hit. So that's how I mean, what's your take on things?
No, I definitely agree. I remember, you know, being at Teen Vogue, we would have to write stories that my editor at the time would say to keep the lights on. So like stories that were buzzy that I didn't necessarily care about, just so that we could keep the traffic up on the site and keep the ads going. So, because I like to write features, like long form stories, but I would have to do a lot of quick briefs or one-offs or slideshows. And it wasn't enjoyable, but I made sure that I did it so that I could spend a little bit more time like writing a feature about a Black woman with releasing her own makeup and just like amplifying like Black voices. So
hearing you say that, so what was the difference between writing for Ebony and then writing for Teen Vogue?
it was a completely different demographic and audience, I would say. I think Ebony definitely has an older Black like audience. Even Jet was mainly Black and a little bit younger, but when you go to Teen Vogue, you're hitting so many different racial, sexual, ethnic, just like way different reach of where like topics were covered and how they were covered.
do you feel like you had a little more freedom of creativity at Ebony at all?
I think it was part of the family that I was telling you about with my coworkers, and just like the cultural kind of familiarity with things. Like, I had to do some research when I was working on things at Teen Vogue just to make sure I was being politically correct and making sure that I wasn't being offensive. And I remember I had said like spirit animal. And it wasn't just outward. It was like in an internal chat, and the editor like pulled me to the side and saying like how offensive that was to, you know, the Native American community. And I'm like, how do you know I'm not Indian? Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was just like a lot of learning experiences and learning curves when you're not just writing for, I would say, like Black media, because I feel way more comfortable talking about Black media because I lived it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's a tricky, like, slippery slope, because then I found myself when I was freelancing being poached to write Black stories, where I started to get pigeonholed and like boxed in of the girl that only wrote about. And it's like, no, I want to write about other stuff too. Like, I definitely want to tell our stories, but I don't want it to be limited to that either.
Is there a outlet? I know for a lot of artists, you know, artists could be independent. They could put out their own music. They could do their own thing. But for writers, with how the job thing is right now for them, like, what routes do they take to push out and do their own thing?
I think just like using their own platforms. Not to put her on the spot, but my best friend Leah is here, and she had a website with her two friends, and you know, you can control your own narrative. You don't have to answer to anybody if you just put your own content out.
Look at what we do. Since I know you, I saw you trying to get something out.
I think you just low-key made me forget my question.
I wasn't ready
I do
either.
remember. Do you feel like so having to go from talking about different topics, do you ever feel like you almost lost your voice within writing?
Yes.
How did you overcome that?
Reading my stories out loud and sitting with them, because I feel like sometimes when I got edited by white editors, and sometimes it wasn't on purpose, they would try to take out some of my voice and everything, and I'm like, I need to sit with this story for a little bit before I take it to get edited, and then it gets like changing like how I'm trying to portray the story and how I'm trying to get it across to my readers. So that's like I feel like a lot of Black writers can struggle with that, especially when you're taking your content and putting it in the mainstream media.
That's
Deep as the ocean sea. I was gonna bring up, you know, because we talking about like journalism structure. What's some things that you miss from Ebony? Like, you know, knowing that was, you know, your first dream. I ain't gonna say dream, but that was your first job. And then, you know, the downfall of things, it didn't just shake Chicago, it shook the whole industry. So like, what are some things that you miss from the structure of Ebony that you feel would actually help today's time?
I definitely miss the archives. I miss the history behind it, because I feel like if you don't know your history, it's gonna be hard to like live in the present or like know your future. So I wish that there was, you know, more about just like John H. Johnson and just like the journey that he took, that more people could come and look at, and it could be more accessible. And even with Fashion Fair, you know, that becoming a very prominent beauty line with like Black skincare, you know, that paved the way for Fenty, and, you know, just different ways of like how Ebony shaped so many different things. So I definitely miss that part.
Yeah, history is, a lot of people need to tap into their history. You ain't lying about that. And I mean, even with you know, let's actually talk a little bit about, I don't want to say the fall, but let's talk about when things started to decline. How was that for you, the staff, to just go to work one day and come back and ain't no job?
Yeah.
You know, like, how did that impact you?
I was embarrassed. That was like the first feeling that I felt.
Why embarrassed? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't expect that. Why embarrassed?
Because it was such a big deal when I got the job. I don't think people understood what was going on behind the scenes. It was just like, she doesn't work there anymore. She doesn't have a job. So I didn't like want to talk about it. I was just like too busy trying to focus and find my next move. And I felt, again, just sad seeing the decline in real time, like living through that, like seeing people not get paid. Like I remember, unfortunately, there was somebody that passed away that didn't get paid for their work. And it's just heartbreaking because it's like, you see that you're a part of this legacy, and you're watching it decline right in your face. And at the time I was just an assistant. I didn't have like the power to really do much. I was just really along for the ride.
Assistant what? Assistant like editor in chief or?
I was an assistant to the editor in chief.
Damn, right off back. Wow.
The position they made for her.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay.
And when you dope, you dope. When you dope, you dope.
They said we gonna make an assistant for the editor. Damn. Damn, girl. Now, I mean, before we get into this break, because we got to talk about management as well. But before we get into the break, so you know, after leaving Ebony, Teen Vogue, is that in Chicago?
It is in New York, and I wanted to move to New York before I started working at Ebony. But I had such a strong connection with my mentor and my boss at the time, and she was based in New York. I felt that it was important to stay with her. I remember when I was working there, a position opened up in the New York office because I specifically love to cover fashion and beauty. And she asked me, she was like, I don't want to let you go, but I don't want to stifle you. And that's why I respect her and love her to this day. She gave me the opportunity, and that was February. And she was like, I'll bump your pay up so you can at least survive there, because, the cost of living was different. But she was like, it's not going to be like, how it is in Chicago. And something just told me, don't do it. And I'm glad I didn't, because 3 months later, the magazine laid off everybody.
At Teen Vogue as well?
No, at Ebony.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Damn.
She dope. She bumped your pay.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, she offered to.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. She believed in you. You know
People
what I mean?
barely get 2% raises
That's
these
real.
days.
Yeah.
And I wanted to briefly touch too, because Teen Vogue is completely opposite of Ebony. Completely opposite market, even revenue stream in a way. So, I mean, even for staff workers, it's writers, journalists in general is different. So what are some of the things you face being a black journalist at Teen Vogue? Because I know that, I got a feeling that had to have been a struggle as well.
It was a very interesting feeling, right? Because when I got there was a black woman editor-in-chief at the time. And I think I had a culture shock. And not in a culture shock of like what you would think, because there were black women on the staff, but it was just so different. Like, I was just used to everybody, like I said, nurturing me at Ebony. And then when I get to Teen Vogue, everybody's in their 20s. Like, the oldest person on the digital staff was like 29. So now I'm feeling like very competitive energy, not feeling like nurturing energy. And maybe I was just in a utopia at Ebony where I felt like everybody should be nice to me because I'm nice to them. And it's like, no, the work environment was toxic. There was so much going on higher up that it started trickling down to everybody. And I was feeling that. And also just moving to a new city on top of adjusting to a new job was like a really big adjustment.
That sounds like a tough time in general. And like you spoke on New York being a place where things cost.
Yes.
They charging you for a bathtub size room, okay? I done went to Times Square, and I'm like, my hotel, I felt like I was in the so I'm just saying, it was horrible, yo. It was. They had a penitentiary sink in my bathroom, okay? I'm like,
your hotel?
Yes. They had this big ass steel door that they put wood on to make it look nice. Well, it was different.
Okay.
I ain't even gonna put the hotel out there, but it was different. So, like, me experiencing that my first time going to New York, I know it had to been. And you going there for work.
Yes.
That's extremely different, man.
When
Are the-
I got the go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask, like, how does the culture in New York compare to the culture in Chicago as far as like amongst Black folks?
Yeah. I would say it's comparable. It's just a little different. I used to live in Brooklyn, and I used to live in Bed-Stuy, and I would equate Bed-Stuy to like Bronzeville.
Okay.
Those are very similar, except for there were way more Black businesses in Bed-Stuy. Like, you can go out of your apartment and you're seeing so many different Black-owned businesses everywhere, and also stuff for our age group to do in our neighborhood. And I feel like Chicago doesn't have that. Like, if you want to go out, you got to go to the burbs, or you got to go up north or downtown. And so I really liked the energy also in New York as well, because I feel like everybody there was hustling. Like, they were there for a reason. I feel like sometimes in Chicago you can get very complacent and very comfortable, but every time I met somebody, they had a story of like their plan, what they were going to do. And it's a lot of transplants that live in New York too.
Is your business struggling? Trying to get your followers up? No problem. You can advertise with us right now. Tap that link above. Now let's get back to the show.
I wanted to know, like, for you, from a writer, and then how did you just come over into the music industry? Like, how did that happen? That transition happen?
Funny story. Okay, so after I got laid off at Teen Vogue, I was freelancing, and I knew Chance a little bit. Like, we went to summer camp together, and when I was working at Ebony, he was on our Black music issue, and we reconnected then. Like, we had gone like a couple of years, like, without seeing each other. I think we would see each other in passing, but I remember him asking me after I got laid off, like, the month that we got laid off, that's the month that his cover came out. So
Is that the one we had on the overalls?
he had on a suit actually, and he
Okay.
didn't have a hat on. That was
Okay.
like his
all
first
white suit.
It was
all
a
black.
It was a blue suit.
Okay.
I'll find a picture and show
I
it
think
to
I know
you.
what cover you're talking
Yeah.
And you said it was the first time he had no hat on.
He looked great. Shout out
probably
to
nervous.
Ayoka Lucas. She styled him then and she styles him now. I brought her back to help because she's amazing. And I'm trying to make this story like short because it's a little lengthy. But he ended up messaging me on Twitter and asking me where I was working at the time, and I was freelancing, and he had just bought the iLLANOiZE. And so I was letting him know that I was freelancing, but I was still living in New York, so I had a strong network of journalists in Chicago. So I was like, I can help, put you in contact with some people, because in my head I'm like, I'm about to interview and start working somewhere full time, but I can definitely help him out. And he ended up asking me to come and help him start the iLLANOiZE and move back to Chicago. And at the time, like, I didn't immediately say yes. Like, I asked him if I could have a week to think about it, because I equated moving back home as not a failure, but I just wasn't in New York long enough. And I was like, should I go back to Chicago? Because it's this whole idea of like complacency and feeling like, I also had a huge going away party when I moved to New York. As my dad says, it was Project X. I probably had 100 people in my backyard. Like, everybody celebrated me. So for the next summer to go back to, it was just so many thoughts going on in my head. I asked him for a week to think about it. I prayed about it. I called Leah. I called my mom, and I was like, what should I do? And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, he's not asking me to move to Nebraska. Like, I can move back and do what I love and go be with my family. So I told him yes, and I came back to Chicago, and we worked on the iLLANOiZE. And then he got married, and then he had a baby, and then he put out another album. And
So he was busy.
yes, he started needing help on the management side. And his dad, at the time, had just retired, and he was helping him with his business. And I remember I took a meeting with him, and he was like, he didn't know much about me at the time, but he was like, tell me about yourself. Like, you have a background in journalism. He was like, you should come on the management side and help us with our press. Like, and I did that, and I did his schedule for about 2 years, like about 2.5 years I did that. And then I started doing more like day-to-day managing and forward-facing opportunities starting September 2021. So that's kind of how it happened. And I never thought that I was going to be on a management team or working with a rapper or anything like that. I wanted to be an editor-in-chief. I wanted to be a beauty editor. Like, I just kept my options open and I didn't limit myself so that I could see what, not to be too preachy, but what God had in store for me, because I feel like if you immediately like shut something out, you don't know where your blessings are going to come from.
I feel like you made the right choice.
I did.
And I want to tap in a little bit into the Chicagoans, because you say he hit you up to help start the Chicagoans. I haven't seen much about the Chicagoans.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
It is on pause until further notice, simply because Chance is very busy and we have a lot going on. There's so many things that we're working on. And I think because it got acquired by him, it's under a very like big microscope, and I know that he is going to want to do it right. He's not going to halfway do it, and we got to give it the right care and attention that it needs.
Were you nervous pivoting industries, like going from fashion and now you're in music, and like you said, it's completely different?
Yes, I was absolutely nervous, especially, you know, when people have a ton of experience in music management. I had to do a lot of trial and error, learning as I go. I was a sponge. I started getting mentors in the industry, and just like I'm still learning, you know what I mean? And I think that's important, just like never stop learning. Like I'm always trying to get new strategies or learn new techniques or find this and find that, and just connect with especially other Black women in music management, because there are not a lot. So anytime I meet them, I hold them close to my heart. I greet them. I embrace them. I stay connected with them. And I think that's the cool thing about my job. Like, people get very shocked when they see me, like, oh, you work in management? Like, probably, I don't know, it's because I look so young or whatever. But I think the music industry, especially in the business side, can be very male dominant.
It is.
So
it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I find myself in a lot of spaces where it's heavily male populated.
You be having to put your Chicago girl on.
Yes. Because once you say that, people are like, okay, like,
Yeah.
really?
Like,
Yeah.
don't fuck with me.
Yeah, you can't talk to her any kind of way.
Okay, because you might get that east side.
Because you're going to be a goofy real quick. Real quick. Get your goof ass on.
Like, do you find yourself still doing, you know, journalism, like as you're managing, or do you know, or has that completely, like, has the management overshadowed most of your work?
I mean, I still have to write. Like, I have to liaison with a bunch of different people and write emails and write bios and stuff. So I definitely feel some integration. Like, I'm not completely lost from journalism.
What was something you had to step up fast, like a skill you had to learn once you accepted the job role of being part of Chance's management team? Because, you know, it's fast paced. It's fast paced. That brother stayed booked, like you just said. So what was like a skill set you had to literally adapt to the quickest?
Don't freak out. And I think it's like,
That's cold.
like, don't freak out, like whatever's going on. And I think that's a little bit about my personality too. There's always going to be a lot going on, and you just got to keep yourself grounded. Because, like, if I'm freaking out, then how am I going to work? Like, how I feel like my energy can feed off him, and I don't want to have that nervous energy around him, or the rest of my team. So I just try to keep myself calm and stay grounded and stay humble, and that's why I go home and see my people. That helps me stay grounded all the time. Like, I have to do it at least, if I'm in town once a week, I go see my family.
That's good.
I'm happy to hear you kept your opportunities available. Because, I mean, I'm just speaking from what I see. I see a lot of motion. Can I say that, motion?
Yeah, you
know,
can say
that's the
motion.
word,
You
right?
can say motion.
I see a lot of motion getting done, and a lot of stuff coming into fruition. You all have a lot going on, like not even just the music, the nonprofit organization, social works, the festival, in which we'll tap into in just a second. But like, are you part of when things go down with social works? Are you also like helping with that organization as well?
Not really, to be honest, because of Social Works being a non-profit. I think it's 501c3. We actually have to keep the businesses like separate. But I always attend any events that I can of them. Like I love Justin and Essence. Shout out to them. And
shout
the
out
rest
to
of the
the team.
board, Reese and everybody else. So we're all super supportive of each other, but I think we work kind of like parallel.
This just hit my mental. As a manager, how do you set goals for an artist like Chance with the caliber he's on?
I think it's definitely a collaborative effort. At the top of the year, we talk about like what goals he has for the year, and then when we hit the 6-month mark, like how do we want to finish out the year? Like you can never have too many goals, and it's like with the festival incorporated into those goals, you know, and now he's doing The Voice. Like, you kind of just have to, like, tailor things to what's going on. Busy guy.
I forgot about The Voice.
Yeah.
The boy knew so much. Sheesh. I mean, let's tap into the festival because you said like that became a goal as well. Whose idea? What was it? Vic Mensa, or like was it a collaborative effort for the Black Star Line Festival?
So the first time Chance went to Ghana, he wanted to go completely by himself, and he decided to go 2 days before. And I remember when he told me, he was like, "I'm about to go to Ghana," and I think me not have ever been to Africa, and just the stigma and just preconceived notions that you have about going to Africa. I'm like, don't you got to take pills 2 weeks before you go there? Like, this doesn't feel safe.
You got to get that shot.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going. Like, this is what I'm doing. And he went with his music director and security, and that was it. And he was gone for about a week and a half. And I remember sending him this long message of prayer. I'm like, I just want you to be okay. But then 6 months after, he brought everybody, and I got to see like just the beauty of what Ghana really is. Like, it is one of the most beautiful, peaceful, just amazing people, great food, great energy like that I've ever been to in my life. And when he went in January, I think he was on a beach with some friends and Vic, and he wanted to put on a festival. And a year to the date of his first touchdown in Ghana, like, we did the Black Star Line Festival.
Damn.
Moving quickly.
Very quickly.
And like you said, you can't panic. You just got to be ready. And
Don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
Staying on the topic of the festival, I got to know, Chance, I missed his performance. So I left after T-Pain.
That was understandable because Chance performed at 6 a.m.
So it was
I believe.
6. I put 5.
Maybe it was 5. I just remember, I have to go back and look at the timestamps on video. I remember as he was performing, the sun was rising.
Yeah. So how was that? Like, being in the background, seeing your artist hit the stage when the sun rise. How was that experience? And was that planned?
No, it wasn't planned. But I would say that was an experience that I will never forget in my life. We all were exhausted. We were on adrenaline. I remember we were deciding, like, if he was still going to perform because it was so late. And there's this thing, like, obviously in the States we have colored people time, like CP time.
Oh, yeah.
There's Ghana time.
Ooh, you ain't
It's called,
lying.
like, Ghana man time. And it's like, it's 10 times worse than CP.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
So
Hold on,
even
Ghana
though-
man time.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
real. That's what they Ghana time. Yeah, it's different.
It's a thing. And I think even though we tried our hardest to stay on track and on time because of just like the culture and everything, we were just running behind. And I remember we were deciding, like, are we going to still do his performance? Are we not? And when we made the announcement, people were deciding to still stay. Like, that's when I started getting emotional. On top of not having sleep, I was seeing like people in the crowd like still cheering at 5:30, 6 in the morning,
I saw
like
that.
throwing Ghana flags on the stage, just like so happy and proud. Like, I will just never forget that moment.
So coming from the first Black Star Line Festival, what adjustments are you all looking to make for? Will there be another? For if there's another,
Possibly.
you know. So what are some of those adjustments?
I think it's kind of like the Black Star Line Festival in Ghana, I think, was definitely a trial run. We got to see what worked and what didn't work. In the next place that we're looking at, it's not as many people. So we're automatically going to have to scale down because of the population. So I don't feel as intimidated by it because we did it and there were 52,000 people.
Say it again.
52,000 people. That was the final count that we got from our security that came through that festival.
Y'all had it busting in a whole nother continent, okay?
If it's to 6 in the morning.
And I got to experience it. And I just
I'm like, what was your
look, I told you I got you. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you. Because without the help of the whole team, I wouldn't have probably even made it. So shout out to you and everybody that made it possible to even get, WBZ to get me down there. It was a blessing. I'm not gonna lie to you, I cried. On my flight there, knowing my father passed in the car a year ago, as the plane was starting to land and I started to know that I'm here, I started dropping them tears of just happiness at the same. It wasn't more so that he was gone. It was more so like, damn, Dad, I made it. Out of all these years, you've been telling me we need to, experience Africa. It's not like what people, what America show us. So it felt, I just felt that overwhelmed emotion. And then when I got there, the people, amazing, man. Everybody's so warm-hearted, kind, open. So overall, my experience of Ghana was amazing, and I'm gonna continue to go back every year. I made plans to possibly go back this year, but yeah, going there made me want to go every year and do what I can to also help the community there. As far as the festival, never experienced no energy like that in my life. Like seeing all these Ghanaian artists hit the stage, along with Chicago being in the building. I'm taking photos. It's a young lady behind me, like Southside. I turn around, I say, wait,
where am I?
I'm like, where you from? I'm from the south side of Chicago. Oh my, and she's with the people. So I'm like, damn. But seeing how you all brought out so many people, and then I was speaking to some people in the attendance. They say they don't really get that a lot, as far as like the older with the younger coming together within unity. They said they don't get that a lot, so they really appreciated that. But yeah, overall the experience was magical for me. A lot of people been talking, T. A lot of people been talking. They feel like Black Star Line Festival may be making its move next year, possibly to Jamaica. A lot of people been seeing y'all in Jamaica parlaying and having a good old ball. And some people already prepping themselves to go to Jamaica. That's fans of the festival. So, is that the new change of the scenery? If it is, like, why move it to Jamaica?
The Black Starline Festival was always supposed to be like a traveling festival to connect Black people across the globe. So I think if it stays in one place, it can be a little difficult to continue that connectivity. And I think of all the travel that we did last year, the one thing that I realized that there are Black people everywhere. We were in Copenhagen, we were in Denmark, we were in Florence, Paris, Venice, and there's Black people everywhere. And I think it's important to continue those conversations and go to different places and make our mark and do. And the Black Starling Festival is not only just a festival, but I don't know if you got to attend any of the events leading up to it.
I did. That Dave Chappelle conversation, right. I love how you all made it to where you couldn't film a damn thing.
That was honestly something that he wanted, but I think it worked out for the best because in the age of social media and everything that we're in, sometimes you're too busy trying to capture the moment that you're not taking in the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I was glad that happened the way it did.
Yeah, me too. It's like I remember it like it was yesterday because I couldn't film nothing. It's all right here.
Yep.
So now I understand. Connecting the diaspora is the most important thing, and that was another thing I got when I was out there. A lot of the people that I touched was like, it's good seeing people come over because it helps the infrastructure. I definitely appreciate you making some time to come because when I say you be busy. So thank you for coming, and you got to let people know some upcoming things that you all have in store, as well as your social media handles where people can possibly reach out.
Definitely. I'm Teryn_Denice, so TERYN_DENICE on everything. So Instagram, Twitter, and I feel like we have so much coming up that I can't even think about.
Oh, United Center.
Yes. Okay. Of course. So yes, we have the 10-year anniversary of the ASARAP shows. We have the Chicago show that is August 19th at the United Center. We have one in Brooklyn at the Barclays on August 26th, and then one on September 21st at the Kia Forum in LA.
Was that planned? Because I saw him put out a tweet. Like, what? I can only bring this to one place. And we like, dude, you got to come to Chicago.
Right.
Come on.
And
But now
Chicago
he
is sold out.
And this is his,
Yeah,
he
it
always
is.
wanted
it really
to
is
do
because
United
I
Center.
tried to really get tickets and
Gone.
I was even signed up for the text messages.
Gone. Did you all expect it to sell out that fast? Because I know I did.
I think especially in Chicago and especially like what ASARAP like meant for Chicagoans and when it came out and this being the 10-year anniversary.
We grew up with Acid Rap.
Man.
Like I remember when Acid Rap came out, or
Boy, I was
not even
dropping
just
the
that, but
ad-lib
10 Day. Like so,
Yeah,
even
yep.
like to see Chance go from 10 Day and then Acid Rap, like
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta do it big for Chicago.
Sold it out, man. Congrats to, like I said, congrats to you all. You all been putting in some tremendous work, not just on the music side, but also within the community. So appreciate you. Thank you for sliding.
Thank you
No, we
so much for
appreciate you.
having
Thanks for
me.
coming.
Hey, no problem. And
What's your
yeah.
homegirl website again?
Oh yeah.
The Soul
The Soul
Series,
Series.
SOLE series.
.com.
Yeah, y'all go hit that up. Go demand some more posts.
Y'all know what to do.
You get held accountable. Shout out to Ari and Rachel too.